This is the official Winning Time podcast from HBO, Hyperobject Industries, and Pineapple Street Studios. I'm Rodney Barnes.
I want to build something special.
The Los Angeles Lakers select
The entire league is on the verge of bankruptcy.
Irvin,
With me, it's gonna be exciting.
Magic,
Our girls, they won't cheer. They'll dance.
Johnson.
It's showtime! Hell yeah!
So this is our final episode of the Winning Time podcast. And to close out our show, I'm sitting down with three actors who've been key this season. The amazing Tamera Tomakili, who plays Erletha Kelly, better known as our Cookie. Hadley Robinson, who plays our Jeanie Buss. And finally, the man himself, John C. Reilly, who plays Jerry Buss. But before all that, we've got to rewind for a recap of Winning Time's exciting season finale. It's Game 5 of the NBA Finals, and the series is tied 2-2 between the Lakers and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Lakers are in control because Kareem is balling. The captain is averaging 33 points, 13 rebounds, and doing it all with his signature skyhook. But things take a turn for the worst in the fourth quarter.
If that ankle is broken and he plays on it, it's going to end his career.
On the business side, Jerry Buss has another critical decision to make. Now that his mama has passed away, he's got to fill her role in the organization. Jeanie is right there. She knows the business. She wants the job. But
I need you to take those two brothers of yours around this office and see how they spark to it.
meanwhile, Game 6 is approaching, and the Lakers are one win away from the mountaintop. But with Kareem out, who's going to play center?
Hey, fellas, we closing out in Philly. Me at center.
But before game time, Magic can't seem to get his head above the competition when he hears Larry Bird is won Rookie of the Year.
Rule number one, fucker. If you're thinking you ain't up to it, you ain't.
The pressure is on. But you know what they say about pressure. It either busts pipes or makes diamonds. My first guest is Tamera Tomakili, who plays Erletha Cookie Johnson. Tamera, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, my first question is really more about you.
Okay.
How did you get your start in all of this madness that we call the entertainment industry?
Well, I am originally from LA, literally down the street, like Inglewood, Ladera area. So
That is down the street.
I have been surrounded by it from a very young age. But when did I start? I started acting in high school, but I think I've always been somewhat sort of a creative. But it wasn't until high school where I was in my first production and I'm looking around and like seeing a stage manager and like props people and the directors and the actors and like everyone who's like, you know, as an extra in the background. And I'm like, this is a thing. This is a world. I didn't know that like all these components needed to be put together in order to create something. And maybe it was the communal aspect of like creating or like being artistic that I was pulled to. But since then, I'm like, I need to do this.
So how'd you come over here with us, the Winning Time family? How did you?
I was in New York before this. So after undergrad and coming back to LA and trying to figure out what my life was as a 23-year-old adult, which was chaotic. I was in LA for about 2 or 3 years and I was not happy. So I bit the bullet and like jumped into grad school, auditioned and was grateful enough to get into grad school. And I was out there for 3 years and I had just finished my last year, did the showcase, did everything, met all the people, got my great team. And I get an audition and I sent it in. I auditioned for it, sent it in and didn't hear anything back. But I was like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm suited. This is the industry. Nothing can cut me down. And 2 days after graduating, I get a call from my team and they're like, Tamera, you did it. We're so proud of you. You booked it. And I was like, booked what? What are you guys talking about? And they're like, you got the role of Cookie with the at that time it was called the Lakers Project, the HBO Lakers Project.
Yes.
And I was just like, okay. I think on the inside, I was so excited that I had no words. And I got back to my apartment and I told my mom. And yeah, we just like, got on our knees, prayed, and like just started singing and dancing. And it turned into like a big old celebration.
So I'm a little jealous of you
Why?
because you get to yell at Quincy and they pay you for it. And I get to yell at him. Yeah, they pay me, but I yell at him in the streets, not necessarily just at work. Can you talk about, for lack of a better word, the chemistry?
Yeah.
Because you guys, there's something, there's certainly chemistry there that you guys flow together really, really well.
Yeah.
Glad you can make it. Been missing.
How bad?
What you mean?
Told you about that job I applied for in Detroit?
What, you got it?
Not if I want it.
Good shit, Cook. All that looking boxy paying off.
Thing is, they're starting up a new branch in LA. Detroit it is.
Nah.
I know that look, Urban.
Nah, I want you to. I do.
Can you talk about that relationship with Quincy and what it means and how it sort of helps, the dynamic between the two of you? Because it's so, I won't say volatile, but it's certainly from one scene to the next, there could be this incredibly nurturing, loving scene.
Yeah.
And then there's this other thing that happens as well.
Yeah.
Can you speak to it a little bit?
Yeah. I think that was a big thing for Quincy and I is like this, we knew that this relationship meant something more than just this idea of like, oh, these people are in love with each other. And, reading Cookie's book and a little bit about magic as well, and him coming with, all this information with magic, I think we were both like, okay, apart from the scene work, we need to get to know each other a little bit. There were moments where we went on hikes. We had these really great bonding moments where we could actually like talk about things, just talk about us, who we were, how we started out, what our dreams or aspirations are. And I think that allowed some level of vulnerability between Quincy and I. I can't say that's where the chemistry came from, but like I think just being vulnerable with each other, I think we created that outside as Quincy and Tamera. And then, jumping into the scenes, we were like, okay, this is it. Let's just be here together and figure it out as they're shooting.
I love when you get mad at him now. Speaking of Cookie, this relationship, this dynamic between the two of you, between Cookie and Magic, isn't the conventional relationship. It's not the thing that you typically see in African-American love stories.
Yeah.
There are complications and layers to it. And I can say as a writer, it's interesting to go to that place to where you're not doing the thing that's expected. Do you have any opinions, since you're Cookie in this world, how do you see, because I'm sure you have your own opinions about what relationships should be.
Yeah.
And this probably isn't that.
Yeah.
So,
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So how do you feel about it?
I think, of course, my natural instinct is to be like, oh, Cookie needs to set her boundaries and, she needs to not be with him, dump him. Like, this is just toxic. But I think the way, and this speaks to you guys, as the amazing writers on the show, I think there's complexity in human relationships. And I think the one thing that I was so grateful for is that it wasn't easy.
Right.
Is that it wasn't easy at all. And those, going back to being vulnerable with Quincy and like having those moments to be vulnerable in the scenes leads to that. And even though I want to instinctually say, oh, Cookie needs to set her boundaries, she needs to break up with him, it's not that simple. It's not that easy. And this was a great opportunity for me to be like, okay, I can tell him no, but in the next scene, he says something, that is me and you, where we go together. And like, in my mind, when I hear that as Tamera the actor, that softens me.
We us.
We us. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't want to say this for every woman, but there's some sense of family. There's something, there's a love that is deeper than that I think this cookie, I don't know about the the original cookie, but I think this cookie really pulls into, and I think that softens her, and whether she makes the right choice or not is how her character is written.
Transcends conventional boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think, too, I hope folks take into consideration, these characters are really young.
Yes.
And they're thrown into the celebrity world, coming from the Midwest into LA and everything that comes with that. They're figuring it out as they go.
Exactly.
It's not like they have a reference point to anyone around them to be able
Who
to
has
say.
done this
Exactly.
before.
And when you try to take those Midwestern values and place it into this dynamic, taking into consideration our magic's frailties or shortcomings, that, you sort of look at it and you say, if I were in that same place, I hope that the public is able to have empathy.
Exactly. She creates this kind of soul, or this humility, or this grounding presence that magic has to kind of go back and forth with.
So let's talk a little bit about Cookie's arc, her story arc throughout the series. We begin on the steps in the pilot of you basically stating where you think this relationship has gone. It's basically run its course, and you go do your thing, and good luck, and I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
You think I'm gonna get out there with all that sun and money and whatever? You think it's gonna change me?
I didn't say change, Irvin. I know you.
You know. You love me.
That's why what we've been doing has to stop.
And then somewhere midway, we go to We Us, and there's love. How does this journey from the beginning, from that pilot moment to where we are right now in 110, how do you see that journey, and how did it play out? How did it play out for you? How you think it played out for Cookie, our Cookie?
Oh, man. I think, we're seeing these young adults, these still kind of somewhat teens growing up. And I think at that final moment where, someone asks her, do you know him?
Hey, what's he like in person? Erletha, right? Yeah, I heard you went to MSU. I mean, you must know magic, right?
No, can't say I do. I think she realizes with all their encounters, him, saying, oh, you're just some chick I used to hit, sleeping with my best friend, having all these, these women who are like surrounding him, and Cookie coming into that saying, oh, he usually picks one from the crowd. You see her kind of say, I don't really know him.
Right.
I want to. I know Irvin.
Right.
I know Irvin, back at home, we used to push each other on the swings in the park, come to my dorm room, Irvin. I know the vulnerable side, the family Irvin, but I don't know this Irvin.
I mean, I think you have this empathy for him, and I think the part, if it were on scales, the Irvin part is the one that's winning, and you're trying to figure out what to do with the magic part. And that's where the conflict is.
Yeah.
What do you think Cookie wants after everything she's been through with this brother? What do you think ultimately she wants? Or do you think she even knows what it is that she wants?
I think she knows what she wants. I think and this goes back to, reading Cookie's memoir. She says it. She's a simple gal. You know what I mean? I think what she truly wants is someone who is going to be committed to making this thing work. I don't think she's asking for, oh, you need to put a ring on the finger. You need to, wife me up right now. But the same way that he puts his effort into the game and navigating the world and navigating the players and understanding how white people feel about him and making them smile. I think that comes with just as much, that kind of effort should be applied into the relationship.
I want some of that too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want me,
Yeah.
you got to make that effort. And I think, I think that is what Cookie is asking. But I think what Cookie is asking him is to grow in a different way that I don't know. He may not be ready for.
Or capable.
Of doing.
The women in the show, how do you see them, even though you're not from that period, how do you see the role of women in this really highly testosterone-driven male
world?
Yes, world.
For my own perspective, I do think that I think the women are strategically placed in here for a reason. And the great thing is, I think you don't see the women falling into stereotypes. You see them fighting against those stereotypes. Yes, of course, I would love to see, I think Jeanie has a great thing that we're seeing right now. You see her kind of fighting this emotional kind of her upbringing and coming into her own. You see that beautifully being played out. Hadley, shout out to Hadley. But yeah, I think you see these women, and I think I talked to Gabby about this during one of the press interviews, is that you see this sense of reality happening through women. Yes, you see these men kind of in the world of like, oh, we got to get this. We got to get this team. They're out here within this game sense. But when you think about the reality of the world, you look at the women and seeing how they're navigating these relationships and fighting to gain more presence. And you see Gabby, you see Claire Ruffman, you see, Mama Christine, you see Cookie, you see them fighting so hard in the world that they are living in to have more, to gain whatever it is that they want, their desires, their hopes, their objectives. You see them fighting so hard in those scenes that you look at them and say, I think this is what the real world actually is.
Right.
This Hollywood or this the Lakers, the game, yes, it's somewhat of a closed bubble and you see them trying to succeed in that world, but then you look at the women and you're like, in full context of everything, you're like, wow, like these women are really like struggling. They're really trying to figure it out. They're really trying to gain their standing. You see them all fighting within this world.
Thank you, Tamera, for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you, Rodney,
it's been a pleasure
for having me.
My next guest is Hadley Robinson, who plays, in my opinion, the real hero of Winning Time, Jeanie Buss. Hadley, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rodney. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good now. I'm talking to you, so I feel safe. You have this commanding presence that makes me feel like, okay, this is going to go great.
I love it. Safe space.
Exactly. So take me back to the moment where you got the first script for Jeanie Buss. What'd you think? How'd you feel about the character of Jeanie? How'd you see yourself as Jeanie Buss? What'd you think? Take me there, please.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I got the script before I was catching a flight out to LA. And so I read the pilot on a plane, which is always the best time to read anything, in my opinion, just because you have like this bubble of space. And I read it all in one go and I was so in. It just felt different from anything I'd read in a really long time. Jeanie also really stood out to me as a character that was important and interesting and complex, just with little seeds of information throughout the pilot where I was like, oh, this girl's gonna go on a journey. There's a real arc here, and it got me really excited. And I got off the plane, and I think I called my agent and was like, all right, I really want to go for this. I really want to go for this because I get this. I get this girl. I understand. And I felt sort of an affinity, and it stuck with me, and so I was excited. I just got really excited reading it.
So did you see a place like where she fit into this world? Because where she comes into the series, she's coming in as an intern, not into the big world with dad and, all of these players and the big business and ultimately where she ends up. How do you think she fit into all of that?
It's so funny because I don't know if she necessarily does fit in right off the bat, but her father buying this team is huge and exciting. He's wanted to do it for a while. And she gets excited, I think, because he's excited.
Right.
And she wants him to be excited, but also she's like, wait, I've got some ideas. I think I could really be a part of this thing. Dad, I want to work for you.
Jeanie, come on.
What?
I'm having a hard time imagining Jerry West and Bill Sharman taking orders from Miss Palisades, which I'm very proud of.
Just tell him to take it from Miss Buss. And I'm not asking to give orders. I'm asking to work.
So I think she maybe internally feels very much a part of this thing, but then she just kind of has to find her footing. I think it's a struggle and a challenge in the beginning, for sure, because maybe she doesn't really know where she belongs necessarily.
Well, speaking to that struggle, how do you see the evolution of her relationship with her dad? Because in the beginning, it seems like she's just happy to be in his presence and working with him and all of that. But it certainly takes on a life of its own over the course of the season.
It really does. It really does. You see at the beginning how much love she has for her father and how much she wants to please him. That's really important to her. And she sort of is seeing him with the rose-colored glasses, like my father can do no wrong in the beginning. And I think a huge part of that is when her parents got divorced when I think she was around 12 or maybe earlier, she didn't really understand the concept of divorce. And so she was telling all her friends that her father had died. She was like, oh, my father, they were like, where's your dad? Where's your dad? And she would say, oh, he's dead, because she couldn't come up with a better solution because she just didn't understand the concept of divorce. And then suddenly at age 14, he comes back into her life and he starts bringing her to meetings. And so she's going to all these meetings with him. And so this is kind of their love language. She's like, oh, this is how I can connect with him. And so, but then I think as she starts to get to know her dad more and spending more time with him, seeing his true colors, I think there's this sort of deep disgust way deep down that sort of is repelling her from him. But I think at a certain point she says, okay, these are your true colors. This is who you are. And she kind of accepts his flaws while putting some distance between him and her, for sure. I think she kind of pushes him away.
Definitely.
But she's being smart about it because she's also saying, all right, this is what my father wants. This is who he is. This is a representation of man. And this is the market we're appealing to. And so how can I use this to my advantage?
So, one of the highlights of writing and producing on this show is that you get to sit in editing and watch the episodes again and again and again, dozens of times, if not more. And one of the moments that struck me in episode 10, my favorite Jeanie Buss moment, when you're sitting across from Dr. Buss and you think you're going to get the thing that you've been working for all season.
Yeah.
But then he asks you to help him pick which brother is going to take the thing that you rightfully deserve.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that moment a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, I love that moment because, I think maybe as an audience, you think she's going in a certain direction as well and she's going to get what she wants. And then to see that she's put in all this work. She's done everything she possibly can.
And you lean in. And you lean in like, I'm about to get this thing, Dad. And then, but go ahead.
Oh, and also that would be the redeeming moment for her father as well.
Yes.
To be like, you know what, and he's expressed it to other, people in the team, been like, oh yeah, no, I can see her potential and I understand what she brings to the team and everything. But then to say, you know what, I think we got to choose one of your brothers who, have been nowhere in sight. I mean,
except at a game. We saw him sit at a game once. But yeah.
Right. Right. And I think it's just that moment of, being just breaking on the inside. But the interesting thing that happens when you break is that that's when you rebuild. In that moment, she's like, all right, we have to choose a different route. Maybe even play dirty at this point. Who knows?
Well, I can see that because there's another scene that's coming up, another big Jeanie scene that comes up right after this, where she meets with Claire Rothman.
My grandma was so smart, so tough. But I think she gave the best of it away. But I don't want to be like her. I want to be like you.
You never will. You're gonna be him.
It's almost like she's looking for, and tell me if this is true, some semblance of perspective as to how she feels. Like I'm looking to regroup, much to what you just said. Is that how you see it?
Yeah. It's like she knows deep down that, this thing is inevitable. And, she is the daughter of her father. And I think, her destiny is sort of set in stone. It's inevitable. She knows what she's capable of. But she's struggling to pull away at all costs because she doesn't maybe relate to her father in the ways that she'd like to. And but I think when Claire, somebody who she respects so much, says that to her, I think that's almost permission to say, okay, I'm going to be him, but I'm going to do it my way.
What's it like playing a real person? There's a real Jeanie Buss in the world. How do you research that type of thing? How do you get to that place of being you and then transitioning to a real person?
It's a great question. I mean, I think just diving into as much information as you possibly can, absorbing everything there is out there about her, and then doing your best to capture the essence of the person.
Right.
And I think at this age, she's 19 in 1979. And the interesting thing to me in projects is seeing somebody's journey, their transition, where the change happens, because the change is what's interesting. And I want to track her growth. In a lot of interviews, she says, I was shy. I was so shy as a kid. Right. And I think, quote for quote, she says, but I play a role. And she laughs it off. Oh, I'm just playing a role. I'm just playing a role. Somebody called her stoic on this podcast. And she said, oh, no, I'm acting. And that is what's interesting to me. I think we're seeing who she really is right now, but something's going to snap. And I think, it's starting to kind of percolate in the end part of the season, where that transition happens, where she turns into sort of a more politicized public version of herself.
What do you want audiences to take away from this portrayal of Jeanie and just Jeanie in general?
Yeah, I mean, well, I have so much respect for Jeanie Buss as a real, living person. And I like watching her watch, And I love how you wrote her, because I think there aren't that many characters like that. It's very external, but she's, internal, and she's observing, and it's going to be fun to see then, where she goes with that. But I just think she's becomes such a strong, important woman in the sports community. It's so fun to see who she is at the very beginning and how she gets there, and that sometimes it's not as easy as we might think.
Hadley, thank you for being on the show. Watching Jeanie Buss grow is one of my favorite storylines on the show, and thank you for making the character come to life.
Rodney, thank you so much. This was fun.
All right, up next is our final guest this season on the podcast, John C. Reilly, who plays the one and only Jerry Buss. John, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Rodney.
So, what drew you to this role? Why'd you want to become Jerry Buss?
Because Adam McKay asked me to. And then once I realized who Jerry Buss was, I realized,
oh my God, I've just been handed the greatest character maybe of my career. It's definitely up there with my favorite experiences. So, you know, sometimes you're born great and sometimes greatness is thrust upon you. And
Yes.
Jerry was born great and I had greatness thrust upon me. So I knew Adam would have my back, and it's a great script that you guys wrote. And I wanted to do it because it just seemed like a lot of fun.
What was the research process going into all of this? Because he didn't write a book.
Right. He didn't write an autobiography. He didn't really, you know, for being such a public person, he actually didn't talk to the public very much after this first season. I think he did what he had to do to get the attention that he needed for the team. And then once they were off and running, he would do like one interview a year at the beginning of the season to talk about the state of the team. So yeah, it was a challenge actually knowing exactly what the guy was thinking from you know, at these different junctures in his life. But the facts of his life are evocative enough. You know?
True.
You look at that guy's life, where he came from in rural Wyoming, his incredible academic career, and then his real estate career, and then the sports team part of his life. There's some really big chapters of this guy's life, and it seemed like people were constantly underestimating him or dismissing him or just thinking like, oh, you're not the kind of person that does what you want to do. And I could relate to that part, you know?
That was my next question. As far as empathizing with him, was there anything you connected to that you learned about with Jerry that you personally connected to?
Yeah, I mean, most of his kind of like personality I related to. You know, my dad was of the same generation as Jerry, and there's a swagger that men of that generation had that I really understood. You know, my dad was really, really very much like this. The power of positive thinking. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Don't listen to naysayers. Charge forward, work your hardest, and great things will happen. Like, that was my dad's attitude. And, you know, coming from the south side of Chicago to LA to become an actor in movies, like, I could really relate to that feeling of feeling like an outsider here in LA. And people telling you you don't look like you're supposed to look to be a movie star. It's a competitive business, and there's a lot of people along the way that try to undermine you. And I can really relate to that kind of stuff in Jerry's life. I'm just someone who, one of my favorite sort of life mottos is worry is negative prayer. So when you're worrying, that means you're praying for the thing you don't want to happen. And I believe in the opposite. Even if things are not looking great, I still really believe in meditating on what you want to happen, not what you are afraid will happen. And that was all Jerry, you know?
Yeah, very
he
much.
He wears confidence like a badge of honor, you know, and like a shield in a way, you know? I don't think he could have pulled off what he pulled off if he had listened to sound advice.
If he listened to Frank. Yes, if he just went for Frank. When we meet Jerry, it's funny because Max and I used to talk about the differences between the pilot and episode 2. Like, the pilot was Jerry going after the team, but he gets the thing that he wants. And sort of episode 2 sends him on this other journey in learning about the thing that he actually owns now.
Yeah.
In looking at the arc, Jerry Buss's arc of our season 1, emotionally, what do you see that journey as being?
Well, I think Jerry knew what he wanted to do from the very beginning, actually. And he let people underestimate him on purpose, I think. Because when people are underestimating you, they are also underestimating your power and your strength. And that's the best time to whack somebody upside the head with your power and your strength when they're underestimating you.
Yes.
So I think, yes, I think he thought he would get more cooperation from the organization.
Yes.
At the beginning. I think once he realized who the characters were in the organization and how he had to quickly figure out how to read them. And he, that was one of his great talents, was he's an amazing poker player. And when you play poker, the whole thing is figuring out what are they really feeling right now? and what are they capable of, and do they have the cards or not?
Right.
Or are they bluffing, you know? And so I think once he quickly introduced himself and tried to charm his way into the lives of all these different people, then he set about trying to convince everyone that they could do it, which I think turned out to be a lot harder than he had expected.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it was one of those things, is like too big to fail. You know,
Right.
Once you push all your chips across the table,
Yes.
it's not like you can take half the chips back. Like, you're all in, you're all in. So, you know, that was one of the surprising things for me as a person playing the role, was how much the tension kept ratcheting up.
Yes.
And I think I may have told you this, Rodney, but I wasn't reading the episodes way ahead of time.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, I was reading them right as we were doing them. So I didn't quite see the crushing pressure coming, you know? And you could say, like, well, you're just playing a character that's not really you. But, you know, when you're really doing your job as an actor, you're really feeling those things. Yes, at the end of the day, you are able to go, yes, that didn't really happen to me, but you're still carrying the psychic weight,
right,
and the emotional cost of those scenes and what was going on with him. So, you know, by the time I finished the show, I was surprised at how much it kicked my ass, to tell you the truth. So I can't even imagine what Jerry was going through, you know, with his whole life on the line like that.
Let's talk about the stuff that had to do with Mom, Jeanie Buss, and with Jeanie Buss. How do you think they shaped or helped to shape Jerry on this other journey while he's traveling on this other journey with the team?
I think, you know, Jerry had this reputation for being like a ladies' man and dating a lot. And he did, you know, after he got divorced, he enjoyed being single for the rest of his life.
Yes, he did.
But I think those women in his life, Jessie, Jeanie, Claire, for that matter, were strong women who were not pushovers. Even Jeanie, when she was young, you know, she had a point of view. So I think when you have women in your life, strong women in your life, they teach you about women, and they teach you the kind of respect that women deserve. And they teach you the power of that. So Jessie his mother was his best friend. And, you know, when you grow up as an only kid with just one parent, that's your primary relationship. So, and you know, this whole thing about his genes, that was something that really clued me in early on about the chip on his shoulder, or at least his ability to keep it real with himself. Like his mother bought him those unhemmed jeans when he was a little kid because they couldn't afford the hemmed ones.
Right.
And she would cut off the bottom of them, and then they'd end up getting frayed and fringy, and that looked cool in the 70s.
Yes.
But then Jerry wore those jeans like that for the rest of his life.
Yes, he did.
You know, when he could have afforded way cooler jeans than those, you know?
Yes.
But that shows you that, and keeping his entire family involved in the organization from beginning to end shows you the kind of guy he was. He never forgot where he came from, and he never forgot the people in his life who were loyal to him. And Jessie was the queen, you know?
Yes.
So I think, yeah, he had a lot of fun with women, but I think because of Jeanie and Jessie, he also had a lot of respect for women and understood how powerful they were.
All of that said, in episode 10, we have this moment where we've seen, and throughout the journey, and certainly when Jessie was getting sick in our latter episodes, Jeanie stands by Jerry. But yet, when the sons come back, he picks them over Jeanie.
Or he tries to.
Yes, yes.
Comes to his senses, and he realizes Claire is the most reasonable person to give the job to. But I think, you know, that was one of the most interesting scenes for me to play, to tell you the truth. That scene when I tell Jeanie, you know, you think she's going to get the job offer in that moment.
We have a seat that's opened up at the company. And it was your grandma's seat. Treasurer. And I need your help, Jeanie.
Of course, Dad.
I need you to take those two brothers of yours around this office and see how they spark to it. You know, and then tell me who you think would be the better pick. Because, you know, what's the point of having a family business if we don't get some family in here, you know? That was like so heartbreaking to me. But I knew I had to play it as tough as I could. You know, I couldn't be like, oh, honey, listen, I'm sorry, but the boys, that was not the perspective of men in 1979 of my dad's era.
Right.
You know, he was a creature of his time. You know, it was just assumed like, well, yeah,
right.
Dad, you know, the boys are older than you. I'm going to go to the next of kin or whatever. The next heir to the throne would be one of these two guys, you know. Of course, he loved Jeanie and kept her around all the time and did rely on her. But I think at the time it was just sort of it's just what I think men thought they were supposed to do.
And certainly she evolved.
He came to his senses. He just a little bit of time with Jimmy and Johnny made him realize any player would be better in the interim. Yeah.
This is true. So, you know, we win the championship in episode 10. Is Jerry on top of the world? Because it seems like now he's getting this thing that he says he wants, but there seems to be some ambivalence. How do you see it?
Well, you know, it's these things that you're wishing and wishing for the shiny prize, and then you get the shiny prize, and it's not until you actually win it and you get it that you understand its worth or its lack of worth. You know, if you don't win, you'll never know what it's worth. But when you win, you know what it's worth. And I think in that moment, Jerry realizes he was doing it for his mom.
Right.
And, you know, at least this initial season, he wanted to prove to her, like, we can do this. We're going to create this together. And then the loss of her really puts things into perspective. So I do think it's a big kind of bottoming out for him when he loses his mom, obviously. I'm talking about the character, you
right.
know?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily about Jerry's real life, you know, but in our show, in our story.
Our Jerry.
Yeah, our Jerry. And I think, you know, that said, when he realized it's somewhat of an empty triumph for him, at the same time, he also must feel a great sense of satisfaction. Like I pulled it off. But I think that's one of the reasons that he got involved in sports in the first place. Because for someone who has an unending craving for more and for more success and more achievement, and sports is the perfect thing. It's a perennial.
It's ongoing, yeah.
No matter what you did last year, you got to do it all over again. And, you know, as a theater actor, I really relate to that. It's like it just keeps you hungry. It's like no matter how great opening night went, you got months of performances to go. And every single time you show up on stage, you got to deliver for that audience again. There's a cruel truth to that. And I think that Jerry realized, like, this is my sweet spot. You know, having to do it over and over again is actually what I'm born to do.
At the end of episode 10, Jerry gives a speech.
Where do you go from here?
Now I guess we do it all over again.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Everyone who said we couldn't do it, you can go
Who do you think he's talking to with the go fuck yourself?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you something about that line. That was just me improvising in the room after the take. I thought the take was over. And it was really hot in that room.
Yes.
And there were all these extras, and I could see they're starting to flag. And I was like, we got more takes to do this. I want to keep these guys engaged so that they don't know what I'm going to say next. Even though they've heard me give the same speech 6 times in a row now, I wanted them to have a sense of excitement, like, what is he going to say next? So I just threw that out there as a joke, thinking like, well, I'll never use that, because Jerry didn't say it.
Right.
He didn't say it in that moment. He said the things I said previous to that.
Right.
That's verbatim, but he did not say that. And, you know, at the premiere party when we were there, one of the editors came up to me. He's like, I just love when you say anyone who doubted us can go fuck yourselves. Yes. He's like, I fought for that line to be in there. And I was like, what? I didn't mean for that line to be there. That's just how the sausage was made.
It's still there. It's still there.
I think that, you know, that was a part of me letting Jerry's inner life out a little bit, because I think as much as you like to wear your bravado as your shield and say like, nothing, you can't affect me. Nothing you says affects me. I'm going to win. I'm a winner. I'm a survivor. There is some part of you inside that's like, damn you people that didn't believe in me. My impulse as being kind of an advocate for Jerry myself at that moment, I wanted to say that to those guys. But I was also just trying to keep the extras engaged in the scene. That's the truth.
So what do you think Dr. Buss's impact was on the Lakers? I know the obvious answer, but I sort of see his presence still there on the team now, even though they're struggling right now.
Yeah.
How do you see that impact on the organization?
Well, not to be cheeky, but I went to the game against Golden State when LeBron scored 60 points and won that game. And I was sitting there thinking like, I know I'm not Jerry Buss. Everyone knows I'm not Jerry Buss. But I'm sitting here in this courtside seat, and these guys on this team know this show is coming out tomorrow night. And I got to think, somewhere in that locker room, someone said, I'll be damned if this show is coming out tomorrow night and people are going to say, yeah, but they got their asses kicked by Golden State last night. LeBron was like, hell no, not in Jerry's house, not in our house. So I think, the impact on the team and the impact on the Lakers of Jerry was that kind of thing, like that pride of place. This is our house. This is a family team. This is this city's team,
Right.
Jerry built that thing in a way that everyone in LA, no matter how much of a sports fan they were, they felt like these are our guys. This is our team. And it's still, good or bad, people are still involved in this city.
They still matter.
Team.
Yeah. Yes, they still matter. Well, John, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you in general.
The feeling's mutual. I really do. One of the great joys for me of this whole project is getting to know you slowly through the making of it. You're a towering intellect, my man.
Thank you, brother. Can't wait to see you.
Talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy. Well, we made it. Our last buzzer beater. But this week, we're not talking about behind-the-scenes moments or Easter eggs because to me, everything in this show is kind of an Easter egg. I wanted to take a beat and tell you about what this show means to me and what I've learned about playing in the world that is the Showtime Lakers. Throughout my career, I've had some pretty cool jobs, but I can't think of one that is cooler than this one. I'll tell you why. I get an opportunity to work with one of my best friends, Max Bornstein, and a lot of really, really cool, great people. Our cast, our crew, everyone involved is deeply, deeply committed to just doing their best work every day. And that has an effect on you as a guy who at times didn't believe he would ever get here, where he's working with the best people in this industry. It's truly an honor. And so you go through all of this. 3.5 years of writing a show, producing a show, getting through COVID, dealing with everything in life that you have to deal with while all of that is taking place. And someone says to me, hey, Rodney, want to do a podcast? And it was like, okay, I really love this show. And I love the people that are involved. And I was so fortunate to work with our cast, who were incredible, who came in to interview, crew members who came in to interview. And then I got an opportunity to work with some great people who actually produced this show and dealt with me and my shortcomings as a host and very patient with me along the way. Yeah, I know it's tough to believe that it requires patience to deal with me, but at times it does. But it's been a fantastic experience. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for listening. Thank everyone for participating in this venture. I really, really, really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come on here every week and talk to you guys about a show that I deeply love. It's deeply personal to me. And I hope you enjoyed season 1. We're working on season 2 now. And I look forward to coming back and hopefully talking to you guys about that next year. I usually say, see you then, but now I'll say, I hope to see you later. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the official Winning Time podcast and for sticking with the show week in and week out. And a special thank you to our guests, Tamera Tomakili, Hadley Robinson, and John C. Reilly. You can watch all Season 1 of Winning Time on HBO Max and be sure to keep an eye out for word about Season 2. I'm Rodney Barnes. See you soon.
This is the official Winning Time Companion podcast, and it's a production of HBO, Pineapple Street Studios, and Hyperobject Industries. Our executive producers are Harry Nelson, Claire Slaughter, Gabrielle Lewis, Barry Finkel, Max Linsky, and Jenna Weiss-Berman. Our lead producer on the show is Jess Hackle. Aaron Kelly is our managing producer. Shaka Mali, Jonathan Shiflett, and Elliot Adler are our producers. Darby Maloney is our editor, and our engineers are Davey Sumner and Jason Richards. Production music is courtesy of HBO, and you can watch episodes of Winning Time on HBO Max.